Hello there, it is time for the spoiler review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Not so much a review, more just talking about stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like in the movie, and being able to actually go into a bit more detail about it. In my spoiler review after the movie, after the midnight screening, I was very careful to not spoil anything for people that haven't seen it yet, but now I'm going to just be talking more in depth about some of the things that I mentioned in that video. Also, you may have noticed a new intro to the channel. I am changing my name here from Cubcos, a Star Wars channel, to Cubcos Cantina. Just wanted something a little bit shorter because every time I've been on a podcast or something and people have asked, hey, where can we find you? I have said my channel name wrong almost every single time. So something just a little bit shorter, a little bit simpler, a little bit of a rebrand. So that's that. So let's talk about this movie. Mandalorian and Grogu, I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought it had some issues, mainly with its pacing. And I would say it's also its lack of character development for the Mandalorian and Grogu. And I guess that's where we'll start. I think that their development in this movie is pretty lackluster, almost non-existent, I would say. I've seen people try and argue back at that, saying that, well, no, Grogu does like sort of come into his own and become more independent and stuff like that. I understand that line of thinking. I just think it needed more, if I'm being honest. Grogu is obviously a lot more confident. He gets his time to shine here a little bit, especially when in the sequences where he's on his own, but it feels a little flat for me. I think they could have done more with it to set that up when it happens a little bit better. For example, maybe towards the beginning of the film, have Din Djarin be overly protective of Grogu at the start of the film or something. You know, have him constantly making sure his armor is on properly, over-parenting him, telling him, no, he can't do this, it's too dangerous, no, you can't do that on your own, you're not ready yet. Just like very restrictive to Grogu. And or you could even have Grogu not taking anything seriously, just being a child and mucking around all the time, and have Mando constantly getting frustrated with him for not taking things seriously, for not listening to him, stuff like that. Then once Mando is kidnapped and taken away and Grogu has to grow up and step up on his own and prove that he can do these things on his own, I feel like that could have worked a little bit better. It would provide a bit of a catalyst for the things that do happen in this movie. That's just like a very like off the top of the brain solution, I guess, to the development issue. We get like a tiny little bit of that in this movie, where at the beginning Mando doesn't let Grogu touch any of the buttons in the Razor Crest, and then at the end of the movie he does. He sort of starts teaching him a bit more. It's something, but I needed a lot more, if I'm being personally honest. It was cool to see Grogu use the Force and not like get super tired and pass out afterwards, so we do know that he is getting stronger. But at the same time, I think they could have done more with these characters, because it didn't really feel like they developed a whole lot. Let's move on to Rotta the Hutt, who was probably my favorite character coming out of this movie. I just really liked what they did with him, making him this gladiator who is good at fighting and wants to be his own person, wants to be as far away from the legacy of Jabba as he can. He's kind to Grogu. He's not what you really expect that character to be going into it. If you know who the Hutts are, if you're familiar with Hutts, it reminds me of the story of Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi, where people were like unsure about whether or not Akbar should even be in the movie because he was quote unquote too ugly to be like this hero character in the rebellion. They thought audiences might not connect with that, and I think it was Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, and George Lucas like deciding that his physical appearance is not the mark of what makes a hero, and that's why they kept that design in the film. I have no idea how true that story is, or if there are some details I've gotten wrong about that, but that's sort of how that idea, I think, sort of fits with Rotta here. We know the Hutts are these horrible gangsters. They're just these disgusting creatures, and yet you get the other side of the coin of that with Rotta, who is someone that is very, very kind. So I really liked what they did with Rotta in that aspect of his character. I liked most of his portrayal in this movie. The thing that I didn't really like or vibe with, though, was the voice performance from Jeremy Allen White. It's a very human-sounding performance, when he is speaking Basic. When he is speaking Huttese, I think he sounds fine, but he does not speak Huttese very much. He is like 95% Basic speaking in this movie. And I have no problem with Hutts speaking Basic, as I've seen other people criticize this movie for, because that is a thing that has happened before, both in books and in the Clone Wars. If we look at Zero the Hutt, I guess we should all just be thankful that he doesn't sound like Zero the Hutt, because I don't know if I would have been able to stomach that. I do just wish that when he spoke, even in Basic, he sounded, well, more like a Hutt, I guess. When one of the twins speaks Basic briefly in the film, it's that slow, deep and rumbling, and he's sort of chewing on each word. I would have preferred if Rotta sounded a lot more like that when speaking Basic. Just a little bit slower, a little bit more grumbly or something like that. It's just, yeah, I don't like the human soundingness of his voice. It just sounds like a human voice with a deep filter on it. It's just something that I didn't think it was very good. It took me out of the movie for a moment. I did get used to it eventually, but at the same time I was just like, man, I wish they'd done this a little bit differently. You can definitely headcanon it away a little bit, where Rotta wants to be as far away from Jabba as possible. So if someone like Jabba, who only ever spoke Huttese, well, Rotta, he's only going to speak Basic and stuff. So you can kind of headcanon that away. He wants to sound as little like a Hutt as possible. It's something, but I wish that a different performance was given. Same with the dialogue with Rotta. I feel like he gives the same speech to Mando twice in this movie. He sort of goes on about how much he doesn't want to be his father. He wants to be his own man, and I feel like he gives almost that exact speech verbatim to Mandalorian 2 times. Once when Mando first visits him, and again when Mando goes to break him out of jail. I feel like that speech happened twice. I think those were my main issues. I've seen people say that they don't like that there were no real massive galaxy-spanning stakes in this movie. I personally didn't mind that at all. This movie was sold to me in the trailers as a Mandalorian and Grogu adventure, and that is what it delivered, so I'm not really upset at that. I'm glad that there weren't so many references or connections to other properties within Star Wars. A lot of people thought that we were going to be getting some teasers or some hints towards Ahsoka Season 2 or Thrawn's return. I'm kind of okay that we didn't get that, to be honest. I like that these shows and movies are interconnected, but I don't want the interconnectedness to be like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it's just so much like, oh, look at this reference, and same with like cameos and stuff like that. I honestly tip my hat to these people for not overloading this movie with character cameos. The fact that the cameos in this movie were director cameos, like people that worked on this series, is fantastic, and that's what I think cameos should be. Like when you watch The Phantom Menace and you spot Rick McCallum and George Lucas in the background, you know, you spot Ahmed Best over there, you spot Anthony Daniels as a random patron in the bar in Attack of the Clones. That's what I prefer these cameos to be. So you get Dave Filoni, Rick Famuyiwa, Deborah Chow, Lee Isaac Chung, and Doug Chiang also make appearances as New Republic pilots, which I really enjoyed. Good. I like the creatives of this universe, so seeing them pop up is fun. And we've seen some of them pop up already in this show, but it was nice to see them pop up again. Anthony Daniels also has a voice cameo as a droid on the Delphi base. I think you only hear the voice in the background in that. I haven't actually been able to pick it out just yet. I've only seen the movie twice, but both times haven't been able to pick it out, but I saw his name in the credits, so I'll have to listen out for it on my next watch. The only other cameo is Carson Teva, really, which I would call a cameo. He appears very briefly at the end of the movie, which I was happy to see. Like, again, that's what I think these cameos should be. Very brief things like that. I am going to give a special shout out to Ludwig Göransson, because the music in this movie was pretty fantastic, I thought. I thought it was really great. It kept that same vibe and tone and theme of the TV series, but also just expanded on it in moments and gave us some new fucking great pieces of music like Shikari. The Shikari theme is incredible. I've been seeing that one all over TikTok at the moment. I used it in my intro. Just some really great scores all throughout this movie. I think my favorite sequence in this movie, besides the opening, I really enjoyed the opening sequence on the snow planet. Really enjoyed all that stuff. I thought it looked great. It was a lot of fun taking out all the walkers, the one-shot action scene inside the AT-AT. Just a really fun opening sequence, kind of like an Indiana Jones movie or a James Bond movie where the start of the movie is the end of a mission or adventure. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But I think my favorite sequence is the action scene on Shakira was the action sequence on Shikari, which was the Dejarik match in the arena with Rotta the Hutt and Mando, where they take on all the creatures on the Dejarik board. That was a blast to me, seeing all those creatures brought to life, seeing the Mantilian Savrap or Savrip, I can't remember their names, pick up the guy and throw it down. Fun little Easter egg sort of moment, and just seeing all those creatures was really fun. It was a fantastic sequence. I absolutely loved it. Another thing I loved was the amount of creatures we got throughout this film. It's just fantastic, especially coming off Andor, where everyone's main complaint was, where's all the aliens? Where's all the creatures? It wasn't a complaint I personally held for that show because it didn't really fit the story they were telling. But in this one, man, creatures and aliens galore. You've got like dragon snakes, you've got the Hutts, you've got Zeb and Embo and the Anzellans. There's the snake guy, Gattori on Nal Hutta. You've got the Amani on Nal Hutta. You've got the Anuba following Embo around. You've just got all these creatures just all throughout this movie, and it was honestly awesome to see. All the creatures in the Dejarik match. It was awesome. If you love the creatures and those effects and stuff like that, a lot of puppets in this movie as well. Just great. There's a lot of great stuff. I loved all the creature stuff in this movie. Also, shout out to Phil Tippett and his studio, which works with a lot of stop motion stuff. Those two massive droids, like the guards in the Nal Hutta hut place, those were completely animated through stop motion. And I love that sequence, that little fight that Mando and Grogu have against those two massive droids. They're moving around in stop motion. It looks fantastic. I love that they still use that kind of animation in Star Wars in 2026 because, that's how they animated so much stuff back in the day. All the walkers on Hoth were stop motion animated, and it's great to see that we're still using those techniques today in film. I love that. I've seen a lot of people say that they think this just feels like 3 or 4 episodes stitched together. I've seen people say, oh, I can see where the credits would have started to roll. I kind of disagree. Like, I think you could do that with nearly everything. Like, I thought of like Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back, and I'm like, I can definitely put credits in there 3 or 4 times and break that up into a episodic show. This, to me, didn't so much feel like several episodes together. This just felt like one long episode to me. Someone asked me today, how is this any different from the series? And I said, well, it's not really. It's more, it does feel like a long episode. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't really know, to be perfectly honest. I was entertained by the movie. I don't think it's a bad movie, as other people claim. I'm somewhere in the middle of it. I don't really rank things or give ratings, 1 through 10. On the Dyad podcast the other day, though, they asked me, hey, what would you give this out of 10? And I said probably around a 6, which I don't think is a bad score, mind you. I think people need to be a lot more normal about review scores. I think a 6 out of 10 is pretty fair for this kind of movie. What else have I got? I did think that maybe going back to Mando still following the Mandalorian creed of the whole helmet thing and no one can see his face. That felt a little bit like, I kind of thought we were moving past this a little bit, maybe. It just feels a little bit played out. Ever since the end of Season 3, they've retaken Mandalore. Mandalore is now under Bo-Katan's rule. The Children of the Watch have kind of re-merged into Mandalorian society, but they're still sticking to this somewhat outdated and odd creed. So that felt a little bit like, we're still doing this kind of thing, okay. Like in real life, the reason is probably so they don't have to have Pedro Pascal there all the time, so he's not just constantly taking his helmet off. That's probably the reason. But I did think that it was kind of a bit like, oh, okay, we're still doing the whole helmet thing. Okay, I guess. Though speaking of, I will shout out once again, Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder, the two stuntmen who bring the physical performance of the Mandalorian to life when the helmet is on. Shout out to them. Their physicality is great. I never noticed how much kicking Mando does. I watched the movie yesterday for the second time. Man loves to kick people around. I didn't really notice how much kicking that guy did, but it's a lot. But yeah, they're great, and they also got good billing in this movie. They're in the opening credits, and when the final credits roll, they are second and third in the list of the cast list, which is amazing. It's nice to see people in the stunt industry being recognized and appreciated for their work. So shout out to those two. What else we got? We've got Embo in this movie. I thought that was a nice addition. I've seen people say, you know, Embo could have really been anyone, and I'm like, yeah, but he's also like, it's a cool thing for people that know who that is to go, look, Embo's still kicking around. And if you don't know who Embo is, you can just be like, hey, look at this cool guy. Look, what a cool hat. You know, so I actually quite liked Embo in this movie. Embo's never had much of a character, you know, so I think he filled the role he was given perfectly. I loved the Anzellans. I'm a big Anzellan fan. I thought they were fantastic. Shout out to Shirley Henderson for providing the voice to them. I've seen people not love the Grogu sequence in this movie, where for about 15 minutes or so, the highlight is all on Grogu because Din is knocked out from the dragon snake poison. I actually love this little sequence because we do get to see Grogu take center stage and see that he is capable. He is capable of doing things. I love the little mud hut building that he makes because you're just like, oh, that's what Yoda made. That's sort of hardwired into them. I like that. Him, you know, speaking with Gattori, I could have used a little bit more of their interaction. I thought they were fun. I don't know, I kind of liked that sequence. It was nice music, it was kind of chill, it was just cool to see Grogu doing his thing, and I don't know, I quite liked that sequence. I've seen a lot of people not really vibe on it, but I quite enjoyed it. Like I said, you know, there's not a whole lot of like stakes or like galaxy defining moments in this movie. The biggest thing you could probably say is that now that the Hutt twins are dead, there's going to be a little bit of a power vacuum in the galaxy, potentially, or at least in that part of the galaxy. That could play into other things that we see maybe. But overall, like, I think this is just a very self-contained story, which again, I quite like. I like that this isn't this galaxy-altering stakes. It's like when you watch a Marvel movie and somehow they have to always end with a world-ending event, and it just gets tiresome at some point. So to go into this movie and to have it be relatively small scale, I actually quite enjoyed that a lot. Overall, yeah, there are other things I could definitely pick at. Like, if I'm being completely honest, like someone like Zeb doesn't really need to be in this movie. You could take that character out and the movie doesn't particularly change. That being said, I'm a big Zeb fan, so it was nice to see Zeb. It was nice to see him voiced again by Steve Blum. So I liked that he was there. Again, he doesn't have the biggest impact on the movie. You could take him out and not much really changes. But hey, I appreciated his inclusion. There was some editing stuff I didn't really like. There's a sequence in the Imperial compound, Janu's compound, where Mando's in the office sort of fighting Hog's Breath and a couple of stormtroopers, and Zeb is working his way through like a massive hallway of stormtroopers, and the action keeps cutting between these two scenes. There's about 3 or 4 instances of jumping back and forth. I didn't like that. I really didn't like the way that this sequence was cut together. I would have preferred to see like one after the other, like give Zeb an elongated hallway scene just cutting through all these stormtroopers, because it was really cool what he was doing, but the fact that it was just sort of quick cutting between the two action sequence, I didn't like that. Didn't really think it flowed very well. Apart from that though, overall, I think that's about it. I enjoyed the movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I'm definitely middle of the road on this movie. I've seen a lot of positive word of mouth from people about this movie, like on the Star Wars subreddit, which, you know, usually leans negative towards any new Star Wars stuff. I've seen a lot of people saying they really enjoyed this movie. I had fun with it. I'm not going to sing its praises from any mountains or anything like that, but I had a lot of fun with it. I've seen it twice. I'm going to go see it again on Friday with my partner. She hasn't seen it yet. And I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I'm looking forward to watching her watch the movie, if that makes sense. I love doing that with people I know, because she loves Grogu. So you know, she's probably going to have a good time with it. I think that's about it. I think that's about it for me. I don't know if I have anything else. I'm going to do more videos on this in the coming days and weeks as well, when I talk more about it and if I think of something else. But yeah, overall, an enjoyable movie. I think its pacing's a little bit off, its editing's a little bit off, its development of its characters is a little bit lacking. You know, it definitely has issues, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't entertained by this movie. I didn't think any parts were particularly boring, and I think it's got a lot of fun action scenes, fun characters, despite being quite thin. So yeah, I don't know, I liked it. Again, I don't like to rate movies with a number because people just focus too much on the number and less on the, you know, the language of the review, but I would give it somewhere around a 6 out of 10. And yeah, that's that. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, make sure you follow me here at the new name of Cubcos Cantina and over on TikTok. I don't know if I'm going to change my name over there. I probably should as well. Get some synergy going. But yeah, also Cubcos over there. And yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you follow me here and over on TikTok. And as always, may the force be with you. Always.